So what's next as we move deeper into the month of December and get closer to our new year? Here to try to figure it all out, we first need to discuss a couple storm systems right out ahead of us. We'll get detailed on that, and then we'll break down what's to come after that. My name is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there and have had a wonderful week so far. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we got a lot of weather entering the western U.S., specifically the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. All this will eventually move into the central areas of the country and then eventually the eastern areas of the country. We do have some weather out here across the eastern half of the lower 48. We got heavy rain, maybe even some thunderstorms down here across the coastline of Texas, Louisiana, a little bit of moisture riding up the Mississippi River here, starting to move into Tennessee, but not a whole lot of anything this morning. Nothing heavy, nothing significant or anything like that. A touch of winter weather up here in areas of Maine, maybe northern New Hampshire, Vermont, but not a whole lot going on. The middle of the country is pretty quiet for now. I think it will get very active over the next couple of days, and we're about to get into that. So watches, warnings, and advisories. I mean, everything is underlapping one another. There is a lot going on, and this is the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, the high plains, getting into just the middle of the country here. We got a lot of high wind watches, high wind warnings. We got winter storm watches here that will likely be upgraded to a blizzard warning. We have blizzard warnings here in areas of Montana. Mixed with high wind warnings, so it's going to be a blizzard. Now I'm not expecting feet of snow in these areas, literally a couple inches at most, but remember, blizzard is really driven off the winds, not necessarily how much snow you get. But we also have blizzard warnings across the Cascades and just a lot of wind alerts. We got red flag warnings down here in Colorado, very dry. You're not going to get a lot of moisture from this system on the way when you get further to the south down here, so a lot going on. As far as the eastern U.S., we do have high wind watches up for what's to come, and I do think we're going to get a lot of wind alerts, whether it's wind advisories, high wind warnings. Eventually, you'll get the high wind watches first that might get upgraded to those high wind warnings, but I do think we're going to get a lot of wind alerts across New England over the next 24 hours or so for what's to come. But the southern tier of the country is pretty quiet, but all this is driven off a couple different storm systems that are on the way. Now let's go on and just take a look at this storm system as far as the 500 millibar flow, and you can see what happens here as we get later on into today, into tonight, and you can see how the jet begins to dig here, and there's another kind of jet that moves into areas of the Pacific Northwest, really gets a lot of wind going in all levels of the atmosphere, the surface, aloft, meaning above the surface. But you can see how this trough digs down, takes on more of that neutral tilt, and then eventually goes into a negative tilt, which means it's going like this. It's tilting like that, and I like it a little bit bigger. It's tilting like this. Okay, when it starts to do that, that means you have a strengthening storm system, and a more high impact storm system normally produces more winds to the surface, and that's exactly what happens as this sweeps across the Northeast. This is not digging very far south, so I do think this will lack a lot of severe weather with it, but it is a pretty aggressive storm system that has taken on that negative tilt and will sweep over areas of the Northeast and really get a lot of winds going, and we'll probably get a big time wind event across the Northeast over the next couple of days. Now, if we actually take a look at what's going on at the surface with this storm system, a lot of weather moving into the western U.S. We just showed you the current radar currently, and as we move forward, we start to get, let's move this out of the way, we start to get into really tonight, and the storm system kind of disappears. It's still here. It just gets thrown further up across the Canadian-U.S. border as a ridge is really pumping across the middle of the country. Therefore, the system kind of cuts across the northern Rockies and then gets way up here. So the cold side of this is actually up in Canada, and everybody south of the low is really the warm side of this. So we continue to move forward. We get into tomorrow morning, and we'll go on and take a look at this area. This is just mostly rain across the Midwest, maybe a touch of winter weather. It's a pretty strong low pressure going across the upper Midwest, but it's just moving too far north for any significant winter weather to the south. So this is mainly rain, and we can already see another storm system entering the Pacific Northwest out west. You can see the snow levels look a little bit lower. We're getting a little bit more snow in the lower elevations, but mainly a rain event for, the valley areas like Seattle down to Portland and the towns there of Oregon. But the middle of the country looks to get a break, but we're still trying to figure out this first storm system. And as we move forward, we get into tomorrow afternoon. You can see this is mainly rain down here across the southern areas of the eastern U.S., like the Ohio Valley, the Mid-South, the Southeast. And you can see some yellows in here. This could be a line of thunderstorms. In fact, we do have a marginal risk tomorrow across areas of the Mid-South, including areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, surrounding states, for a thin line of thunderstorms that could roll through tomorrow in the PM hours. But this is a 986 low. Pretty strong low pressure, but it's pretty far north. So it's actually going to be raining on top of all that snowpack that's there across the Great Lakes region. But this continues to move forward, and we get into tomorrow night and then eventually into Friday morning. And this is just a big old rain bomb across the Northeast with high winds associated with it. Some cold air will dip in behind it. Might kickstart a little bit of lake effect snow, maybe some northwest flow type stuff all the way down to West Virginia. But definitely no high impact winter weather from this whatsoever. But this is a lot of rain, a lot of wind. Friday morning, it's definitely going to be a rocky start to your morning here across the Northeast. And there's that touch of snow behind it. And then we got more storm systems, just entering the western U.S. through the weekend. But really the big story with this storm system on the way is the winds. And here's a look at the northern Rockies, the northern high plains. These are forecast wind gusts from the National Weather Service, peak wind gusts. And I mean, take a look at it. I mean, you got 60, 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts that are possible. Now, this is the forecast peak wind gust, max wind gust. So very strong winds, just big time wind event coming in with this. Now, if we look at the northern plains and more so the north central U.S., and this is only going out about 24 hours. Very strong winds across the Dakotas into the Nebraska. But remember, like I said, this only goes out 24 hours, so it might drop off over here just because we get outside of that 24-hour time frame. But very windy conditions across the Laramie Range, the Bighorn Mountains, the Black Hills, very strong winds on the way. And then we drop it south. We got wind alerts down here too. A little bit of disagreement here. They're not matching up very well here in eastern Colorado, but a big time wind event comes across the central high plains and just the central plains in general. If you live in Nebraska, especially western areas of Kansas, all the way down to New Mexico, the eastern plains, and just the Rockies of Colorado, 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts will be possible. And then we start to move into the eastern U.S. for these winds, and the southern and central apps. And this is just the Euro. Are going to get some very strong winds from this. I do think if we actually switch this to the National Weather Service forecast, this goes out to about Friday evening. Outside of the mountains, 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts will be possible. You get into these higher elevated regions, a few thousand feet up, you can get 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts. I don't think this is going to be some type of historic wind event by any means, but definitely some strong gusty winds in this area all the way up into West Virginia, mountains of Virginia. And then we take a look a little bit further up the road here into the Northeast. I do think that this could be a decently high impact event, but we get this several times a year. I don't think it's anything you guys can't handle, but it's going to blow around your Christmas decorations. But this is the Euro run for max wind gusts. You got basically starting from the Valley of New York down to New Jersey, the Delmarva area, then points northeast. You get a lot of strong winds with this. We're talking 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts being possible across this area, especially when you get out towards Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. I mean, we could get some 70 mile per hour wind gusts. Right now, this is the National Weather Service forecast for this, which goes all the way out to Friday evening. And I mean, even they are going towards 50 to 55 mile per hour wind gusts out here in southeast Mass. And even the eastern tip of Long Island. So some very strong winds. Definitely a windy overnight period tomorrow night into Friday. Probably getting all the way into our Saturday across the Northeast. So be aware of these strong winds. Here's a closer look at Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland. And you guys go off kilometers per hour. And this is what the Euro is saying as far as max wind gust in kilometers per hour. Over 100 kilometer per hour winds are possible across all the Atlantic Canada regions here. So be aware of that. Nothing that you guys can't handle. I mean, you're used to nor'easters out here, but definitely some strong gusty winds are possible as we get towards our weekend with this storm system on the way. So be aware of that. As far as snowfall with this, we're not expecting a ton, folks. I mean, I'm going to go on and just take a closer look at some of these areas. Here's a closer up look at the western U.S. between now and about Saturday evening. And you can tell this is mainly for the higher elevations. And a lot of people ask, why don't you put more detail into the western U.S.? It's because everything's microclimate driven. I mean, you can go 5 miles one way and you're 10,000 feet up. You can go 5-10 miles the other way and you're in a valley only a couple thousand feet up. So it's hard to get as detailed. My videos would go on forever if I spent detailed time on all these separate sections. But here's a broad look at how much snow you could get just between now and about halfway through this upcoming weekend. It's definitely a lot in the Rockies, Northern Rockies specifically in the Cascades, and a little bit in the Sierra Nevada. I don't think a lot of moisture is getting down here yet. That could change as we move over the next week. But if you look at the central U.S., remember, we do have winter storm watches up here, some blizzard warnings already up across Montana. But if you look between now and about Saturday evening, not expecting much snow. But remember, these blizzard warnings, stuff like that, not driven off how much snow you get. It's all about the winds and stuff like that. So a few inches of snow, but it's going to be blowing around mixed with all the snow that you might have still on the ground, especially once you get further east into Dakota. So not a lot. Touch of snow up here for you guys, the standards in the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, northern areas of Minnesota, a few inches of snow. And then we move into the eastern U.S., same time period, basically between now and about halfway through the weekend. I mean, outside of the lake effect driven regions, not a lot. Not a big snow signal getting into this weekend. So moving forward, talking about a severe weather potential with the storm system, we do kind of have a bimodal marginal risk across areas of the northern Rockies, really driven for the lower elevations. But level 1 out of 2 risk of severe weather, a marginal risk, and this is probably just driven off some winds. Yeah, you got a 5% risk of damaging winds pushing 55 to 60 miles per hour in this area. Not really a hail threat with this, and not really a tornado threat. So some strong gusty winds will be possible. And then we move down here. There's a general risk of thunderstorms. But if you look at day 2, this is for tomorrow. A huge area of the eastern U.S. at least has a risk of thunderstorms. But if you zoom into, say, Kentucky, Tennessee, and surrounding states, there is a marginal risk of severe weather. We'll see if this upgrades to a slight risk for an increased risk of damaging winds. But right now, we're just going to watch a thin line of thunderstorms that moves through this area: Nashville, Louisville, Lexington, Evansville, down to Memphis. And if you take a closer look at this, starting off tomorrow about midday, we look at the HRRR model run, and we get this in motion. You can see as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, a thin line of thunderstorms will be possible all the way up into Ohio. And you can see it's just a thin line here in this kind of yellowish orange red color sweeping through. And there's going to be a favored area right here where you'll have your best moisture at the surface. You got plenty of wind energy, I think, into here, but will you have the thermodynamics needed, those higher moisture levels at the surface? And you're just going to be lacking that. I don't think you'll have a deep pool of moist air, but this line of storms will sweep through. I don't think this will be a big deal at all, but just be aware of that. This is tomorrow afternoon, this is tomorrow evening, and it's getting into tomorrow night. This will make it all the way into the Appalachian Mountains. So, all right, moving forward, what happens between now and about till Christmas? Okay, well, you see this kind of blue area dipping down to the lower 48. That is the storm system we just talked about. Okay, this will bring the storm system. This will bring a quick shot of cold air, and then temperatures will modify, get warmer. So when you put this in motion, here it comes. Takes on a bit of that negative tilt. This will get the winds going across the northeast. Shot of cold air follows behind it. Then we get into the weekend, and then you start to see a flattened out ridge. Now, ridging, the higher pressure is in the yellows, the oranges, the reds, even some pinks embedded in those reds that you see on this map here. Okay, this brings warmer temperatures, and you see the blues and the greens. This is a lower pressure, so this is going to bring the colder air and potential storm systems, and kind of in the dividing line kind of between the ridge and the blue area. So the warmer colors and the cooler colors, the blue area, this is where kind of the avenue of our storm systems go. But as we're getting into the weekend, you can tell All the cold air is up here, all the warm air is down here. And that is basically the pattern outside of a little dip in the jet stream here and there. For example, maybe another storm system moves into the northeast for the later half of this weekend. You can see this trough kind of digs down across the northeast Great Lakes region. Doesn't dig very far. And then for the days leading up to Christmas, this ridge really strengthens and even pumps all the way up into southern areas of Canada. Now, we do have an active flow that continues. For example, across the Pacific Northwest and western areas of Canada, the flow is literally doing like this, okay? And then going like that, and then dipping down like that. It follows that blue area, right? And then we just got a big-time ridge flexing across the middle of the country. That'll keep things pretty calm wherever that ridge is, all right? So that is the general pattern. Everybody embedded in this ridge will be warmer than average as far as temperatures. Okay, but we continue all the way up to Christmas, and the pattern stays about the same. We get some movement here and there, but the pattern stays about the same. So therefore, here comes this quick shot of cold air behind this storm system that we just talked about for the first half of the video. This will bring a period of below average temperatures. The further north, the colder it is. As we're getting into this weekend, even into early next week. And then the air mass quickly modifies. You can see not only do we get above average temperatures, but in these colors right here in kind of this burgundy, whitish color, I mean, that is like 20 to 25, maybe more degrees above average. And you can see all the cold air is up here in Canada. So if we stop here, this is for the 23rd of December next week, and you back this up as far as the upper pattern. For the 23rd, that's what, let's see if this is matching up well. Yeah, it is. So ridge flexing across the lower 48. How does that match up with the actual temperatures of the surface? Pretty much perfectly. Okay, so that's going to be the pattern outside this little shot of cold air between now and about Christmas. Okay, and I know it stinks if you're a cold weather fan. You know, for once again, my dreams of a white Christmas or a snowstorm leading up to Christmas here in my neck of the woods, which we hardly even see snow in the coldest part of winter, is shot. It'll live on to dream another year, right? But at least for some people, we've had a wintry start to December. Now, let's move past, and I know this takes we're much further out. We're looking at the top of the globe pretty much right now. Okay, and I normally don't take it this big of a broad look here, but this is extending basically from Christmas to about New Year's. And I'm not even going to move this at all, okay? This is the 7-day ensemble mean off the Euro ensemble of what the pattern can look like in that time period, okay, between Christmas and New Year's. And this is what we're looking at. We're still looking at, we're going to make this... Yeah, that might be a little too big. That might be a little bit better. Let's see if any of these other colors show up any better. They do not at all. So we're just going to stick with black. All right, so we still got this pesky. You might have to squint, put on your bifocals to see this, but we still got this pesky ridge over the lower 48. This is going to most likely keep a good chunk of the lower 48 warm outside of the northeast and the Pacific Northwest. Okay, now we got this what we call Aleutian Ridge that is flexing across this area up here, across areas of the northern Pacific. Okay, this is creating this trough, what we call a negative PNA across areas of Alaska, Western Canada, into a very small section of the Pacific Northwest. This ridge flex is making cold air kind of dump into this area. Okay. Now, we have a bit of a trough over this area of Atlantic Canada and the Northeast, barely over areas of the Northeast. We do have a bit of a ridge starting to flex over areas of Greenland. We call that a negative NAO. And if there's any teleconnection, when I say teleconnection, I'm talking about the PNA, the EPOs, the AOs, the NAOs. The NAO is probably the one that most people have heard the most about. Negative NAOs normally helps us get an active storm track across the eastern U.S. with shots of cold air to go with it. Therefore, you have increased chances of winter storms across the eastern U.S. So the only connection, teleconnection that I am seeing between Christmas and New Year's that favors any sort of disruption of cold air and buckling of the jet stream, which allows for cold air to come south, increases winter weather chances, is the NAO that could go negative. Okay, this is not good. This is a negative PNA. Basically means we have troughing in Western Canada and areas of the Western U.S. Now, this isn't one of those negative PNAs that drops a trough all the way down into the Western U.S. In fact, the Western U.S. is getting robbed from this pattern too. And if you're tuning in from the West, you guys know that y'all have had a really, if you're a winter weather fan, you guys have had kind of a lame start to winter. And we really need to position this ridge right over here and kind of pump it into this area. So we kind of need this ridge here and these warmer colors to really flex across this region right here. Okay, and we really need it to flex across this area. If you're a winter weather fan across the central to an eastern U.S., this will allow cold air to kind of drop down into the lower 48 in that fashion. If you kind of move this ridge a little bit more so like this, this will cause this blue area to kind of dive more so down into the western U.S. and get some cold air going. And I think that could happen as we start to move closer to the new year. I mean, that's the western kind of issue going on, okay? We don't really have a negative AO, which is pretty much a ridging or blocking up into the higher latitudes in this area, okay? I really think, yes, this is an issue. A lot of people are talking heavily on this. We need this to move this way. But I think a huge issue here is, and it's a good thing at first, is yes, we start to get this negative NAO blocking over Greenland, but it's what we call, it's basically east-based. So the strongest of the ridging is over this region right here, which is kind of over areas of eastern Greenland. And we need this to really be further to the west. So we need just more blocking over the higher latitudes right over this region. This would force this trough that you're seeing right here to most likely dive down across the eastern U.S. Okay? There's a lot going on. And it's tough to explain because almost everything is out of position moving forward as far as ridging. And that's what it comes down to, is we have misplaced ridging in the higher latitudes to dislodge the pretty blues you see on your screen right down to the lower 48. Everything is misplaced moving forward. So, I mean, you can see the dip in the jet going right here, introducing some cold air across Atlantic Canada, maybe the extreme northern areas of the Northeast. But you need something to really get this going over here. I mean, we need to get this to work over here or something like that. It's just going to take a lot of rearranging of the teleconnections. And we just don't have that. So to really sum all that up, we really need to place the ridging in the proper areas to dislodge cold air if you're a cold and winter weather fan to the right areas to the lower 48. So, I mean, you got the positive. What we really need, guys, to really sum this all up, and let's go on, and I know I've said to sum this all up about 100 times. This is what we really need, okay? We need a tall, if you're a cold and winter weather fan for the central and eastern U.S., if you're for the western U.S., you really want this trough just to pretty much dig across this area, which doesn't seem as far-fetched as what we need in the central to eastern U.S. But you really need for the central to eastern U.S. a big ridge to spike all the way up into Alaska and the western U.S. and the western areas of Canada. We call that a positive PNA. This would dislodge cold air down to the south and introduce a more favorable pattern. Now, if we get that working, sure, we could use some work from the NAO, but we don't need everything perfect for everybody. But that's what we really need. And we're really, really far away from that. And there's a lot of issues, but I really think this Aleutian Ridge right here is really just locking this trough in place right here over areas of Canada, Alaska. I mean, Alaska's been just froze up, guys. So I hope that makes sense. It's not easy to explain. And I mean, if you look at the Climate Prediction Center kind of going all the way out to, and are you just going to move slow for me? Come on, man. The audience is waiting. There we go. Jeez. If we look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook extending from the 24th to the 30th, I mean, it's basically Christmas Eve to just about New Year's, right? I mean, it matches up exactly with the lower heights and the higher heights that I just showed you, the ridging and the troughing. And we're just nuking the country with warm air. And I mean, that's, you know, what it comes down to is the fact that if we go back and look at this, we look at that, a little bit of this, and we'll extend this all the way out to that time frame. I mean, really what's happening here is, I mean, it's so deep, guys. The flow is coming around this, and then it goes just like that. So therefore, what is it doing? Well, it's nuking the entire country with a lot of warm Pacific, mild Pacific air. So this trough is basically, that's what it's doing. I mean, all the flow's going like this, and then bang, hits the lower 48 with a lot of mild Pacific air. Okay, I do think the pattern could work for maybe areas into here, as we got some energy that could kind of come down here. A little cold air could be introduced into the energy. And remember, kind of on the outer edges of these warmer colors you see, that doesn't always mean that we're getting very warm temperatures. This is the pattern in the upper levels, not the surface. So we're going to get a little bit of cooler air at the upper end of this ridge too. It's deep, guys. I mean, it goes really deep. And, you know, I want you guys to know that I'm not ignoring the MJO because I was honking the horn at it like crazy over the last, it's not what I want to look at. Over the last, come on, where's my go-to site here, man? We are just, there it is, right here. I've been honking the horn at the MJO house. It's such good, it's so favorable, this, that, and the other. So I don't want to just totally drop it off and act like I'm just ignoring it. But I think at the end of the day, we're just hanging out too much into this null phase, into this circle of death. And I mean, it's so clogged up right now that it's extremely hard to see where we're at. But what is it, the 17th? I mean, technically, we're in a decently amped phase of phase 8, which is favorable. But we're just hanging out too much in this circle of death. And there's so much stuff that is deeper about the MJO than that I'm not going to pretend that I understand. I mean, you got what you call Kelvin waves out in the Pacific, you know, areas that are disrupting the amplifications of the MJO. It's deep. It is so deep. And I try to not get too deep with you guys because my understanding of it all begins to fall off. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to explain it as good. So it's deep, guys. So to wrap all that up, and I'm not going to get as detailed as I just did in this video, in the videos to come. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So hopefully people got what they wanted out of this video. But we have to shake up the high latitude ridging. We got to position it better. And to be completely honest with you guys, going 15 days out, I don't see us shaking it. But that could change fast, as you guys know. The good news is, if you're a winter weather fan, we got a lot of cold air. Our cold air source is cold, but we gotta kind of dislodge it, right? So the southeast today, we're gonna get some rain across the western areas of the deep south, some sprinkles here and there. Surge of rain will begin to move into the low country of South Carolina, so we might wake up to a damp start across areas of the southeast. Could wake up to some storms across the bayou, southern areas of Louisiana and Alabama. A little bit of shower activity as the ridge begins to move in, some flow begins to move. And also then the northeast, a touch of winter weather is possible in northern Maine. It's actually warming up here to the point where you're actually going to struggle to get winter weather. Pretty wild to think about how cold we've been, but not a very active day across the northeast. The south central U.S., moisture, rain dancing around across the coastline of Texas. And, that's about it. Some rain this morning, some thunderstorms, but not a big storyline. North central North central US. We got a storm system moving in, but it is definitely warm. It's amped up. So it's just rain moving across the Dakotas here in mid-December. Pretty wild. Then it's moving across Minnesota. The Dakotas. Then it's moving across Minnesota. You can see that low pressure is all the way up in Canada. Snows in Canada, therefore. So then we get the back end snow that falls in behind it with the cold air. So this is when our blizzard could get going tomorrow morning across areas of North Dakota, maybe even northern areas of Minnesota. And this is just an area of rain developing across the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. The western U.S., a lot of moisture moving in now, and then another round moves in later tonight to tomorrow. And it just remains active out here as you have just enough of the dip in the jet across areas of the Pacific Northwest to keep an active flow across this region. So the eastern U.S. is warming up fast. Any kind of snowpack you got on the ground, I mean, it's going to start to melt fast today. Today will be a big melting and dripping day across this entire area of the country that has snow on the ground. So say bye to your snowpack. It stinks. It's just going to get wiped out before Christmas. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, man, it's going to be a snowy Christmas. Yeah, not so fast, my friend, unfortunately. The deep south, it's warming up 60s and 70s. I ain't gonna lie, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, it has been cold. The cold has been cutting to my bones here in South Carolina over the last couple mornings. I think that's just because I've been sick. But the western U.S., the northern areas of the western U.S. is cooler. You get down to the desert southwest and southwest. I mean, it definitely warms up some 70s and 80s. So yeah, that's all I got. Let's create a timestamp. Let's make this our timestamp. Do a quick Bible devotion. I actually did this yesterday morning and, couldn't do the video because I was sick. But Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 through 2, I said, and it says, therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses, you almost want to say crowd, right? But it says, therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Sorry for the mixing up of words there. I said, do what needs to be done, even if it's difficult, to remove sin from our lives. A lot of times, it's the little things that you do every day that hold you back. Oof, I'm a testimony of that. I'll tell you that. If our eyes are on Jesus during every step of life, we will have the strength and endurance to make it through anything in this life. Jesus endured the cross for us. He knew the end result. We should live our lives the same way, knowing that if we are keeping our eyes on him, what we face has a purpose and we'll get through it. Scripture mentions cloud of witnesses, men of great faith, and the end result that happened because of it. We think about Abraham, Noah, and what they did, what they were asked to do. A lot of people surrounding them, probably thought they were crazy at first. They did. But those great men of faith, stayed true to what their calling was, and we know what happened. The rest is history, right? So, hey guys, it's been tough getting the flow back going. I was struggling even before I went on vacation with the videos, and I'm not sure what's been going on. I have a desire to make videos, but I haven't been able to get them going. But you mix that with the fact that me and the family came home sick. My youngest girl still has a cough, but she's been able to go to school. And then I just had something just very odd happen over the last couple of days. Yesterday, I just had big time dizziness. Thankfully, I woke up and I'm feeling 100% this morning. And I don't know if I just had what my little girl had, and I just had different symptoms, but definitely nothing I've never dealt with dizziness. So it was very odd, very new to me, and it kind of scared me briefly. But I'm back to normal, feeling fine this morning, and hopefully we can just get some good flow going with these videos and stuff like that. And I'm actually grateful for a quieter time, even though you guys know that I'd much rather be breaking down winter storms and cold weather. But it just looks like we're going to enter a quieter time. So, not going to have any evening videos for the foreseeable future. I'm going to just enjoy the slower time because it will get busy again, as we know. And it kind of matches up well with the week leading up to Christmas and stuff like that. So I remember it was around this time last year where things really started to get super busy because we were staring down the big pattern change that ended up happening in January. But hopefully we can get the flow back going and no twisting of words, and just get a full head of steam going moving forward. But appreciate the support from all y'all, and thank you for the well wishes, the prayers, and all of that. And yeah, we'll do it again tomorrow morning. God bless, and have a wonderful day.